You're not going to believe the absolute firestorm that's erupted on social media, and you need to hear this right now because Jade Cargill is at the center of the most controversial and divisive moment in recent WWE history, and fans are absolutely tearing each other apart in the comment sections of every wrestling platform, arguing about whether what happened during her entrance at the latest show was a genuine accident or a calculated publicity stunt designed to get attention and generate headlines. During what was supposed to be a routine entrance for a match, Jade Cargill experienced what appeared to be a wardrobe malfunction on stage that had the production team scrambling to cut away from certain camera angles, and that has since become the most talked about and most debated moment from the entire show, completely overshadowing the actual matches and storylines that WWE spent weeks building toward. Now fans are split into two extremely vocal camps, with one side defending Jade and insisting that accidents happen and that she's being unfairly vilified for something completely beyond her control, while the other side is accusing her of intentionally planning this malfunction as a desperate attention-seeking move that crosses professional boundaries and that disrespects the wrestling business. Before you decide which side you're on and before you rush to the comments to defend or attack Jade, you need to hear every single detail of what actually happened, what the evidence suggests about whether this was planned or accidental, and why this controversy is revealing some really uncomfortable truths about how female wrestlers are treated and judged compared to their male counterparts. If you click away from this video right now, you're going to miss the most complete and balanced breakdown of this situation that you'll find anywhere, analysis that goes beyond the surface level hot takes and actually examines what this means for Jade's career and for how WWE handles these kinds of incidents going forward. And make sure you hit that subscribe button immediately, because we're the only channel brave enough to discuss controversial topics like this without picking sides or pushing agendas, giving you all the information so you can make up your own mind about what really happened and whether the fan reaction is justified or completely out of line. The incident in question happened during Monday Night Raw this week, when Jade Cargill was making her entrance for a scheduled match that had been promoted throughout the show and that fans were anticipating as a showcase for Jade's athletic abilities and her continuing push as one of WWE's rising stars in the women's division. Jade has been positioned since her arrival in WWE as a dominant physical specimen, someone with incredible strength and presence who looks like a legitimate superhero come to life with her muscular physique and her confident swagger. Her entrance has always been a major part of her presentation, with elaborate ring gear and dramatic lighting and music designed to make her arrival feel like a big deal, like someone important is coming to the ring who demands attention and respect. On this particular night, Jade was wearing one of her signature elaborate outfits, the kind of eye-catching ring gear that WWE's female performers often wear, that's designed to look impressive on camera while still being functional enough to actually wrestle in. The outfit featured multiple pieces and components that had to work together, and somewhere during her walk down the ramp or during her pose on the stage, something went wrong with how the outfit was secured or how it was staying in place. Different camera angles and different viewer accounts describe slightly different versions of what exactly malfunctioned, but the consensus is that a significant portion of her outfit either came loose or shifted in a way that revealed more than would normally be shown on WWE programming, creating a moment where Jade was inadvertently more exposed than she intended to be. The WWE production team's response to this happening in real time was immediate and professional, with cameras quickly cutting away from certain angles and focusing on other shots that didn't show the wardrobe issue as clearly. The director and the production truck made split-second decisions about which cameras to use and which to avoid, trying to minimize how much of the malfunction was actually broadcast to the millions of people watching at home, while Jade worked to quickly adjust her gear and regain her composure. By the time she actually entered the ring, the issue had been resolved and she was able to continue with the match as planned, with commentary not acknowledging that anything had happened and the show moving forward as if this was just a normal entrance. But in the age of social media and instant replay and fans analyzing every frame of footage from multiple angles, there was no way this moment was going to just disappear or be forgotten. Within minutes of it happening, clips and screenshots were being shared across Twitter and Instagram and Reddit and every other platform where wrestling fans congregate to discuss what they've seen. Some of these clips and images were more revealing than others depending on which camera angle they came from and at what exact moment they were captured, and the posts sharing this content started racking up thousands of views and comments and shares as word spread about what had occurred during Jade's entrance. The initial reaction from most fans who saw what happened was sympathetic and understanding, recognizing that wardrobe malfunctions are an unfortunate reality in any performance-based industry where people are wearing elaborate costumes and moving athletically and trusting that everything will stay in place. Many fans pointed out that male wrestlers have experienced similar issues over the years with trunks or tights or other gear malfunctioning during matches or entrances, and that these incidents are generally treated as embarrassing accidents that everyone moves on from rather than as major scandals or controversies. There were messages of support for Jade flooding social media, expressing hope that she wasn't too embarrassed and reassuring her that no one was judging her for something that was clearly accidental. But then a different narrative started emerging from a subset of fans who began analyzing the footage more closely and pointing to various details that they claimed proved this wasn't actually an accident at all but rather a deliberately planned stunt. These accusers started compiling evidence and creating posts and videos breaking down why they believed Jade had intentionally caused or allowed the wardrobe malfunction to happen, with their theories ranging from relatively tame suggestions that she knew her outfit was poorly secured and chose to wear it anyway for attention, to much more serious accusations that she actively manipulated her gear during the entrance to create the malfunction on purpose. The supposed evidence that these accusers point to includes things like the fact that Jade seemed to pause and pose in certain positions during her entrance that some interpret as her deliberately creating opportunities for the malfunction to occur or to be captured on camera. They claim that her body language and facial expressions in the moments before and after the incident don't show genuine surprise or embarrassment, suggesting that she knew what was happening and was comfortable with it because it was part of her plan. Some have even gone frame by frame through the footage claiming to identify exact moments where Jade's hands can be seen adjusting or manipulating her outfit in ways that could have caused the malfunction, though these claims are highly speculative and based on interpreting ambiguous movements in ways that support the conspiracy theory. Other accusers focus on Jade's history and her previous work before coming to WWE, pointing out that she's always been someone who embraces her sexuality and her physical appearance as part of her character presentation. They note that her social media presence has always featured glamorous photos and content that showcases her physique, and they suggest that someone with that approach to self-promotion wouldn't be above manufacturing a wardrobe malfunction as a way to generate buzz and get people talking about her. These critics frame this as Jade using the same playbook that various celebrities and entertainers have used over the years when they want attention, the old any publicity is good publicity mentality that leads people to create scandals or controversies that get their name trending even if the attention is negative. The most extreme accusations go even further and suggest that this was coordinated with WWE management as a deliberate attempt to generate viral moments and social media engagement, with both Jade and the company being complicit in staging something that appears accidental but that was actually carefully planned to create exactly the reaction it's gotten. Proponents of this theory point to WWE's history of pushing boundaries with women's presentation and their willingness to court controversy if it drives viewership, suggesting that a wardrobe malfunction that gets millions of people talking and sharing clips is exactly the kind of result WWE would want even if they'd never publicly admit to planning it. Now let's be absolutely clear about something before we go any further. There is zero credible evidence that any of these conspiracy theories are true, and the far more likely explanation is that this was exactly what it appeared to be, which is an unfortunate accident that happened during a live performance when elaborate ring gear didn't function as intended. Wardrobe malfunctions happen all the time in WWE and in entertainment generally. They're an occupational hazard of wearing elaborate costumes and performing athletic movements that put stress on how clothing is secured. Janet Jackson had a famous wardrobe malfunction during the Super Bowl halftime show that became one of the most talked about moments in television history, and even though conspiracy theorists insisted that was planned for publicity, everyone directly involved maintained it was a genuine accident and there's never been any evidence proving otherwise. But the fact that these accusations are being made at all and that they're gaining traction with a significant portion of the fanbase reveals something really disturbing about how female wrestlers are viewed and judged in ways that male wrestlers aren't subjected to. When a male wrestler has a wardrobe issue, when their trunk split or their gear malfunctions in some way, the reaction is usually jokes and light teasing, but nobody seriously suggests that they planned it or that they're attention-seeking or that they deliberately sabotage their own gear for publicity. But when something similar happens to a female wrestler, suddenly there's this rush to assume the worst, to question her motives, to suggest that she must have done this on purpose because women's bodies and women's sexuality are assumed to be tools that female performers will use manipulatively to get ahead. This double standard is rooted in deeply sexist assumptions about women in entertainment and particularly women in wrestling, an industry that has a complicated and often problematic history with how it presents and treats its female talent. For decades, WWE and other wrestling companies objectified women wrestlers and positioned them more as eye candy than as legitimate athletic performers, creating an environment where women's value was tied to their appearance and sex appeal rather than to their in-ring abilities. While that's changed significantly in recent years with WWE's women's evolution and the push to present female wrestlers as equals to men in terms of skill and importance to storylines, there are still lingering attitudes and assumptions that female wrestlers are always performing their femininity and sexuality in calculated ways rather than just being athletes trying to do their jobs. Jade Cargill specifically seems to attract this kind of scrutiny and suspicion more than some other female wrestlers because of how she presents herself and because of the character she portrays. She's incredibly beautiful and has a physique that she's proud of and that she showcases through her ring gear and her entrance presentation, and she carries herself with confidence and swagger that some people interpret as arrogance or attention-seeking. There's also a racial component that can't be ignored, as black women in entertainment generally face different and often harsher judgment about their bodies and their sexuality compared to white women, with stereotypes and biases affecting how their behavior is interpreted and whether they're given the benefit of the doubt in situations like this. The defenders of Jade Cargill have been equally vocal in pushing back against the accusations and in providing their own analysis of why this was clearly an accident and why the conspiracy theories don't hold up to scrutiny. These defenders point out that Jade has nothing to gain and everything to lose from intentionally creating this kind of controversy, that she's worked incredibly hard to be taken seriously as a wrestler and as an athlete, and that manufacturing a wardrobe malfunction would undermine all of that work and reduce her to being remembered for this one incident rather than for her accomplishments in the ring. They argue that no wrestler who's trying to build a legitimate career would deliberately create a situation that embarrasses them and that could potentially get them in trouble with management or with sponsors who don't want their brands associated with that kind of content. Supporters also note that if you actually watch the footage without the bias of assuming it was planned, Jade's reactions and body language are completely consistent with someone experiencing a genuine accident in real time. She looks surprised when she realizes something is wrong. She quickly moves to adjust her gear and protect her modesty. She seems genuinely uncomfortable and eager to get to the ring where she can fully address the issue away from the cameras. All of this suggests authentic embarrassment and a desire to minimize the situation rather than someone who planned this and is comfortable with what's happening because it's going according to their scheme. The broader conversation about how WWE and wrestling companies should handle wardrobe malfunctions and similar incidents is an important one that goes beyond just this specific situation with Jade. These companies have a responsibility to their performers to provide ring gear and costumes that are well made and securely designed so that malfunctions are less likely to occur in the first place. They also need to have protocols in place for how production teams should respond when issues do happen, making sure cameras cut away appropriately and that performers aren't left exposed or humiliated on live television. And there needs to be support for the wrestlers who experience these incidents, making sure they're not blamed or punished for accidents and that they're given resources to deal with any emotional impact from having such an embarrassing moment broadcast to millions of people. WWE's official response to this incident has been essentially non-existent publicly, with no statements released and no acknowledgement that anything noteworthy happened during that Raw episode. This silence is probably strategic, based on the calculation that drawing more attention to the situation by commenting on it would only amplify the controversy and keep it in the news cycle longer. WWE likely hopes that by not feeding the story and by continuing to book Jade normally in subsequent weeks, the whole thing will blow over and be forgotten as fans move on to other topics. Whether that strategy works depends largely on whether new information emerges or whether the accusations continue to gain momentum to the point where ignoring them becomes impossible. The impact on Jade Cargill's career and reputation from this incident is difficult to predict because it depends on how fans and WWE management ultimately interpret what happened and whether this becomes a defining moment that overshadows everything else about her or whether it's just a footnote that people barely remember a few months from now. In the best-case scenario, Jade continues to be pushed as a top star, the accusations fade away as people realize there's no substance to them, and this whole incident is eventually seen as an example of female wrestlers being subjected to unfair scrutiny and conspiracy theories that male wrestlers don't face. She could even potentially address it directly through her character or in interviews, using it as an opportunity to discuss the double standards women face and to call out the people who rush to assume the worst about her intentions. In the worst-case scenario, this controversy damages Jade's relationship with WWE management, who may see her as having become a liability or a source of negative attention regardless of whether she did anything wrong. They might pull back on her push or position her less prominently out of concern that she's become too controversial or that sponsors and corporate partners are uncomfortable with her being associated with this kind of content. The accusations could also follow her throughout her career, with critics bringing up this incident anytime they want to question her professionalism or suggest that she doesn't deserve her position, using it as supposed evidence that she's more focused on getting attention than on being a serious wrestler. The fan community's response to this situation has revealed some really ugly undercurrents in wrestling fandom that often get hidden beneath the surface but that emerge whenever there's an opportunity to tear down a female wrestler. There are absolutely fans who are motivated by misogyny in their rush to accuse Jade of planning this malfunction. People who are uncomfortable with women being powerful and confident and sexual and who look for any opportunity to question their legitimacy or to reduce them to objects rather than subjects. There are also fans who have racial biases that affect how they judge Jade compared to how they would judge a white wrestler in the same situation, holding her to different standards and being quicker to assume negative intent. But it would also be unfair to paint everyone who questions what happened as being motivated by prejudice or bad faith, because there are also people who have genuine concerns about the increasing blurring of lines between reality and performance in wrestling and who worry about wrestlers potentially manufacturing controversies for attention even if that's not what happened in this specific case. Wrestling has always existed in this gray area where fans are encouraged to suspend disbelief and treat storylines as real while also understanding on some level that things are scripted and planned, and that balance becomes harder to maintain when incidents occur that could be either real or manufactured and there's no clear way to determine which. The comparison to how male wrestlers are treated when similar situations occur really drives home the double standard at play here. When male wrestlers have had wardrobe issues or when their bodies have been exposed in ways they didn't intend, the response has generally been humor and sympathy rather than accusations and conspiracy theories. Nobody suggests that male wrestlers are using their bodies strategically to get attention or that they would deliberately create embarrassing situations for publicity. There's an implicit assumption that male wrestlers are serious professionals focused on their craft, while female wrestlers are always potentially performing femininity and sexuality in calculated ways even during what appear to be accidents. This connects to larger issues in society about how women's bodies are viewed and policed, how women are expected to be simultaneously attractive but not too sexual, confident but not too proud, powerful but not threatening. Jade Cargill exists in this impossible space where she's supposed to look amazing and showcase her incredible physique because that's part of what makes her character compelling and larger than life, But if something goes wrong with her presentation, she's accused of doing it deliberately for attention because clearly someone who looks like her and presents herself that way must be using her sexuality strategically. It's a no-win situation where women are criticized regardless of what they do, either for being too conservative and not embracing their femininity or for being too bold and using their appearance for attention. The role of social media in amplifying this controversy and in spreading the conspiracy theories cannot be understated, because without platforms like Twitter and Reddit and YouTube giving every person with an opinion a megaphone to share their theories, this probably would have been a minor incident that got briefly discussed and then forgotten. But social media algorithms reward engagement and controversy, so posts accusing Jade of planning this malfunction get more attention and more sharing than posts defending her or urging people to move on, creating a feedback loop where the accusations gain traction simply because they're more exciting and more shareable than the boring truth that accidents happen. The wrestling media's coverage of this situation has been generally responsible, with most outlets declining to amplify the conspiracy theories and instead treating this as a straightforward wardrobe malfunction that doesn't warrant extensive coverage or speculation. Some outlets have written pieces defending Jade and calling out the unfair accusation she's facing, using this as an opportunity to discuss the broader issues of sexism and double standards in wrestling fandom. Other outlets have simply chosen not to cover it at all, deciding that giving attention to baseless accusations does more harm than good and that the best response is to let it fade away naturally rather than keeping it in the news cycle. The question of what WWE should do if they want to address this situation and support Jade is complicated, because any official response risks drawing more attention to the incident and validating the conspiracy theories by treating them as serious enough to warrant a response. The best course of action is probably to continue booking Jade prominently and treating her as a major star, sending the message through actions rather than words that WWE has full confidence in her and doesn't view her as having done anything wrong or as being tarnished by this controversy. If Jade continues to get significant television time and important matches and storylines, that demonstrates more effectively than any press release could that WWE stands behind her. Jade herself has not directly addressed the accusations on her social media or in interviews, which is almost certainly the smart play given that engaging with conspiracy theories tends to give them more oxygen and makes them harder to kill. Her social media presence has continued normally with posts about her matches and her training and her life outside wrestling, not acknowledging the controversy or the people attacking her. This approach of not feeding the trolls and not giving accusers the satisfaction of a response is often the most effective way to handle these situations, allowing the controversy to die down through lack of engagement rather than being prolonged through back and forth arguments. The long-term implications of this incident for how female wrestlers are treated and viewed in WWE and in wrestling generally remain to be seen, but hopefully this can be a teaching moment that sparks conversations about double standards and about the importance of giving people the benefit of the doubt rather than rushing to assume the worst. Female wrestlers deserve to be evaluated based on their actual behavior and their demonstrated abilities rather than being subjected to constant suspicion and conspiracy theories anytime something happens that could potentially be twisted into a scandal. They deserve to work in an environment where wardrobe malfunctions are treated as the unfortunate accidents they are rather than as opportunities for people to question their professionalism and their character. Make sure you stay subscribed to this channel, because we're going to continue following Jade Cargill's career and documenting whether this incident has any lasting impact on how she's positioned or how fans perceive her. We're committed to covering women's wrestling with the same seriousness and respect that men's wrestling receives, calling out double standards and unfair treatment while also being honest when criticism is genuinely warranted. This situation with the accusations against Jade is a perfect example of why that balanced approach is so important, why we need to examine our own biases and assumptions about female performers and make sure we're judging them fairly rather than holding them to different standards than their male counterparts. The controversy will eventually fade, but the lessons from how it was handled and how the community responded should stick with us and inform how we approach similar situations in the future.